Well, it was very difficult. No, I think sometimes there's just an alchemy and a magic that happens, and I think it's down to Ken creating the space for that. One of our first days, Ken had Judy, Kieran, Jamie, and myself in a room. And you asked us questions about our childhood, about our parents, our grandparents. You shared a lot of stories, and that very quickly got us all just to know each other on a very intimate level and on a very personal level. And I think that really broke down any kind of, for me, I was very intimidated walking into that room, but very quickly everyone sort of got along and knew each other on a very kind of real level. And I think that starts everything off on a very open kind of playing field. So it just continued from there.
Jamie, I want to ask you, that you started filming this movie in September of 2020. August of 2020.
Yeah.
So what were the challenges, the acting challenges for you and for everyone in the cast to make a film during a global pandemic?
Yeah, listen, it's not easy. There's a lot of protocol that we had that was unusual and alien to all of us, getting COVID tested every day, having this strange one-way system on to set, and like each department would get their time, the sound would get their moment, and then the props would get their moment, and everyone was just coming in this sort of like in phases. It was very strange. But I think the overriding feeling for all of us was that we were so fortunate to be making something. We were all sitting around really clueless as to when the next job was going to come, and nothing was shooting. We were the first out of the gate in the UK, particularly. So we just felt lucky to be employed, let alone employed on something that is was so meaningful to me personally, certainly, and to all of us, and with such an incredible piece of work for us to play with. So that was the overriding feeling, and you were just happy to do all the protocols and keep everybody safe because we were felt so fortunate to be there to be able to tell that story.
Hi, Jude.
Hello.
I'm going to say something to you that you're going to hear a lot. You were awesome in this movie.
Thank you.
How did you find out you got the job?
Well, I remember when the email came through, I ran around my house screaming for about 5 minutes. And I didn't even get halfway through the email, and I read it all, and I found out who would be in it. And I was amazed because my mum and dad knew all these actors, and I knew some of them as well. And it was just crazy.
Which ones did you know?
Yeah, it was just crazy.
Kieran, what impressed you the most about you? This is his very first feature film.
Yeah, when I was introduced to Jude the first time, and Ken had told me that he was an Irish dancer. It struck a chord with me because I did Irish dancing for about 15 years myself, and I thought, I wonder what this little fella's like. And in this open-hearted, imaginative, brilliant young fella walked, and I knew within a couple of seconds that we were going to have a real adventure making the film, because he was a gift to us from Ken, and I think now you'll understand he's a gift to the world as well. Yeah.
One more question for Ken before I open up to the audience. So I was really moved by your introduction last night at the Academy Museum premiere. This is a very personal film for you. It has been in your head for 50 years. Why was now the right time to tell the story and to write this story?
Well, it came out of that silence that a lot of us stared into at the beginning of the lockdown, and it certainly sent me back to this other lockdown that we experienced, where both ends of the street were barricaded, and you ended up looking inward. I think a lot of us did this during the pandemic and separated from things that were so familiar to us that we perhaps took for granted, and particularly from people that we took for granted. I think it was a chance to look back. I wanted to shake hands with the 9-year-old kid. And also try and understand what my parents had gone through. I think that people, in this pandemic, a lot of people made enormous numbers of sacrifices, and I think in this time and in these communities people did. And those sacrifices, those family moments, I think a lot of people from around the world understand. You know, we all have our versions of them, and it seems to me one of the beautiful things that the film seems to have unlocked for people is moments in their own life when, I don't know, they're suddenly told that Father Christmas doesn't exist. He does, Jude, by the way, he does. He does. But if you thought that he didn't, sometimes when that knowledge comes your way, it can be difficult. And I think that just, you know, when you leave in whatever sense, a home or a place, I think that readjustment involves dealing with some form of loss, which can be painful, and the result can also be beautiful. But it's bittersweet, I guess, like life is sometimes. And going back to look at it at a time when we were all considering those difficult, you know, losses in our own lives and what is valuable to us, sort of meant that it sort of had to come out.
Yeah, just one more thing. You talk about your 9-year-old self here. What made Jude the perfect buddy? Who were you looking for, and what made Jude just perfect?
Well, I think, as you'll have seen and as we all know, and I would say, actually, you know, just apropos of your first question, one of the things about this group of actors, and Katrina was just talking about what made the atmosphere, I would say Judy, the distinguished Judi Dench, who isn't here, one of the things she said to me once, I remember thinking it's very unusual as an actor to say this. We were talking about the reaction of people in the world about her work or whatever, and it came out and she just said, well, the thing is, Ken, I like people. I like meeting people. And I would say that this group of actors like meeting people. It was an example last night. It was nice, you know, it was nice to be amongst everybody, you know. It was we were happy about this. Don't need to be in some separate room or be, you know, sort of kind of, you know, filtered. So all of that energy was going out. Jude, I think, has the same thing. Also, he had, I think, this group also share a sense of humor. So does this one here. But I think that the biggest thing, and again shared by these other actors, was the capacity to listen. A lot of Buddy's performance was about it's about reacting, isn't it? It's about listening and watching, not necessarily saying things. And acting on film often is reacting. So it needed to be somebody who could do that in that very moment. Now, he had a lot of great people to listen to. So another thing to say, much as I love young Jude here, and he's amazing, but it was a group thing. So a lot of that performance was given to him also by these distinguished characters, but he gave it all right back with a capacity to be present, which is so beautiful.
Jude, what was it like working with Kieran, with Jamie, with Katrina? Like, what did you learn from them?
I learned so much from each and every one of them. Yeah, I mostly just asked for a bunch of advice about acting, and that really helped me understand the acting community a lot better. And even working with Ken and having him as my director and writer is just mind-blowing. And each and every single one of these actors is extremely talented, and they're all just really, really nice people.
So this is your first film. Jude, you want to do it again?
101%.
All right, let's turn over to the audience. And when you get the microphone, I ask that you state your name and your outlet. And I'm going to start you in the mask and the glasses. Say that a lot today, you in the mask. No, we do need the microphone.
I do.
Thanks. Hi, yeah, Chris from Joe Blow in Montreal. You said something pretty interesting last night, Kenneth, about how even during dark times, there are moments of happiness, and I think that a lot of us can relate to that, having come out of a pretty dark time, COVID-19. But I wanted to know, it feels almost perfectly timed, this movie, because seeing it with an audience feels almost like a cathartic experience. And are you hoping that perhaps a mass audience views this movie the same way? Because it does feel kind of ideally timed in that respect.
Well, thank you. I mean, yes, I mean, we found both these recent experiences with these large numbers of people. I saw and experienced and felt the movie in a different way. And I felt, you know, there's a way in which you can understand silence, the nature of silence. You know, I've made a few films where the silences were not good. There was a silence representing no other factor but boredom or disinterest and an exit from the room. But I think here, I feel people lean in to some of the family problems. I feel them care. I feel a real personal interest. I think the investment, the human investment, is just something, and I'm thrilled, of course, that it's happening around our film, but I think it's independent of our film, of course, and I'm sure it's happening in lots of other experiences that people have in the world. But I think it's to do with maybe us not being fully put back together again after what we've been through. There's still a couple of layers of skin missing, and maybe we need some emotional release, and storytelling has always helped provide that. We read to know that we are not alone, and this movie definitely, I think, tries to let people know that we need not be alone.
Katrina, I'd love to hear your take on that.
Oh, wow. How do I better for that? Yeah, I mean, again, like when we saw the film on Thursday in Belfast, I definitely had a new experience watching it. I mean, I was watching it with my mother, which was such a special thing for me. It was the first premiere she'd ever come to. And there's so much of her that I drew from for my performance. And, you know, I think, yeah, I just think it's that thing of I mean, for me personally, it was a really quiet, very still 4 or 5 months before we started filming, and then right after we filmed, we went into another lockdown. Mm-hmm. And it's you know, I was very blessed. Nobody in my family got ill, but it was a very introspective and a very, I think, it was a tough time for everybody. And I do think that this has been, it's been such a joyful experience, bringing this film to people, watching people be moved by it. I mean, my mom turned around to me and she said, you know, I just didn't want the film to end. And that was like the most special thing that I heard. So, yeah, it's just been really special.
That's actually a unanimous feeling. I didn't want the film to end either. Jamie, you know, you made this film, you all made this film under trying circumstances. Mm-hmm. You had your premiere in Belfast, and you are a Belfast man. Mm-hmm. What kind of responsibility, how important was this movie for you?
Just, you know, couldn't be, you know, we've taken this film to many parts of the world. We've screened it very successfully. The response to the movie has been very positive. It's been very pleasing. It's not always the case, particularly for me. So we care so much what people from Belfast think of this movie. It's not strictly only for the people of Belfast, but God, they're important, and the story of the people and what people from that part of the world have been through is vitally important. It's been told in many different guises before to success, and you know, there's a place for what Jim Sheridan did in the 90s and recent films that are focused more on the sort of the troubles themselves. But to see a normal, hardworking family and the impact that the beginning of the conflict had on them, I think is really important. So Thursday night was one of the most remarkable experiences of my life. To get to share it with those people, and for those people to have embraced it, and we felt a very palpable sense of love in that room, and that just meant so much to all of us. Yeah.
Thank you. Let's go over to this side. Wow, everyone. Right over here on the side here, and again, please state your name and the name of your outlet.
Hi, Danielle Salzman, Salzy at the Movies, and my question is, can you talk about the process and filming the everlasting love sequence on set?
Well, I can just briefly say that Alita, our choreographer, was involved but I essentially handed it over to the brilliant and beautiful Katrina Balfe and Jamie Dornan. So tell us, how was it? I know you rehearsed a lot.
Well, we had to.
Well, God.
I mean, yeah, I would venture to say neither Jamie or I are natural dancers. Maybe Jamie more than me. No, it was, I mean, beautiful choreography by Alita. We were shooting a lot of the time in a heat wave. So there was many sweaty sessions of dance rehearsals where we were learning this choreography in like 35 Celsius. But I think it comes at such an important part in the story. And for Ma and Pa, you know, for these two characters, it's really where the stresses on their marriage have sort of come to a height. And I think it really needed this moment for them to remember the foundation of love that they have for each other. And I think that's what's the most powerful thing in that scene is you see that despite all the things that are happening around them, these are two people who love each other so purely. And then, of course, the wonderful singing by Jamie Dornan.
Well, listen, I'll tell you what was a godsend that day was that the vocal that I recorded for it, we did it after the production, so I wasn't having to sing live. It wasn't like, you know, Les Miserables or whatever, where they're all singing live. I don't think I would have survived the day if I had to do that. It was hard enough trying to lip sync in time on the day and deal with the dance moves and all the emotion that was wrapped up in that moment. And I agree with Katrina in terms of like the release of it. I feel it comes at a time in that movie where you've been through so many difficult moments and suddenly there's this joyous release, and it's vitally important, and to see it through his eyes. And you know, that day was filled with terror, really, fear, but I was just getting so much back from this one and everyone. It was, you know, obviously Kieran was like the only one who wasn't with us that day. For
I
obvious.
couldn't be bothered turning up.
He wouldn't even lie in the coffin. It was really, you know, it was strange. But it felt like, you know, bar Kieran, the whole gang were there, and it was very special, and it will be a day I'll never forget that day. You know?
Do you remember there was when we were talking about what was underneath it as well? I remember what came to mind was a volume of poetry by D.H. Lawrence, and it was a series of short poems that were written after he eloped with Frida Weekly. She had children. She left her children. It couldn't have been more difficult. And this very simple but beautiful, at least to my mind and ear, volume that they wrote. And I remember talking to you about this, about what should this look be when she looks back to Pa. And the title of the volume was "Look, We Have Come Through." And for me, that was what, you know. Yes, it was a pop song that they danced to, but it was about, you know what, I think we got through this next bit. Look, we have come through. And what was great about these two was you could have them in a sweaty chapel for 4 weeks rehearsing, but also talk about notes like that, and they could do both. So they do all the jiggling and joggling. But I really think there's a couple of looks in there between the pair of them that go so deep in terms of understanding that it matches it isn't just, as it were, the power of cheap music, as some people would put it. It's just a connection to the depth of the relationship. And it was lovely to have actors who were responsive to both things.
Let's go over to right over here.
Hi, thank you. Chuck Kaplinski, WCIA TV, Real Talk with Chuck and Pam. Gary Cooper is my favorite film actor of all time. Thank you. It was great to see him on the screen last night and the way you used him. If I had the opportunity to make a film about a section of my life, I would only hope it would be half as beautiful as what you've all accomplished. Thank you. What you've done has given us a real gift, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Brana, what happens next? How did your family adjust to the move? We know what happened with your life, but how did your family, your parents, deal with the move and the adjustment, and your brother as well?
It was tough, I'll be honest with you. It was tough. I think that the sacrifice that Katrina so beautifully describes in the scene on the bus had its impact. I think that the first part of life was the illustration of the idea that it takes a village to raise a child, and then the village wasn't there, and safety was there, protection from violence was there, and economic opportunity was there. But I think it was tremendously hard for everybody. And one of the reasons that, it's such a stupid and obvious thing to say, one of the reasons to do the film was we never, ever talked about it. We just didn't. They were so certain, they so wanted to make the sacrifice work, you couldn't look back. Plus, an Irish thing is don't dwell, don't indulge. Other people are always worse off. So forget about your suffering. It isn't suffering. Listen, you got a chance, you got a job, you got to go, you got out. She said go, and so get on with it. But 50 years on, I needed to. But it was tough for them. In the end, they had beautiful moments. But you give something up. There's no question. And what they gave up was significant. But they were very lucky and blessed in all sorts of other ways.
Kieran, I want to ask you, you were also from Belfast.
Yep.
So, I mean, the responsibility that you had, and also projecting a film that was about family, but also about what went down in Belfast in 1969.
Yeah, when Ken sent me the script, and I picked it up, and it just, from, I guess, page 1, I turned over to page 2, and for some reason, it started to go straight into my brain and my heart, because the rhythm in which he'd written it and what he was talking about, I had experienced myself in a slightly different fashion. But we grew up half a mile from each other in Belfast. I have a few years on him. But the connection to the material was kind of huge to me, quietly huge. I wouldn't go out screaming about it, but he just captured in his writing the truth of the situation, but placed into a kind of dramatic form. But it's as true as anything I would remember about filmmaking of Belfast. At the heart of the story, the love and the connection of the people was, to me, so pure that the least we could do was to do justice to Ken and to his family.
Back to this side, right here, front row, blonde, with the mask.
Hi, first of all, congratulations. One of my favorite movies of the year, this and Barb and Star. I loved it so much. One of my favorite scenes of the movie is the scene between Ma and Pa, where Pa acknowledges that Ma raised the kids just so beautifully. Yeah. I thought that moment was so impactful for the story. So Jamie and Katrina, can you talk about your memories of filming that scene and also getting the direction from Ken as well? Oh, and Lauren Veneziani, DC Film Grill and NBC Baltimore. Thank you.
That was the scene when I think I'd said yes in my mind before I even opened the script, based on the personnel surrounding the film. But that was the moment that really punctured me in the script. So when we shot that scene, we shot it first from the angle that it plays in, and by the way, this one fell asleep for real. I don't know what that says about what Balf and I were getting up to.
There's a really low soundtrack of little snores throughout that scene.
Yeah, not great for the confidence,
I mean, he's very method.
Yeah. Unbelievable. But we shot it from down there, and which is a beautiful, beautiful image. And I'm allowed, I can say this. Ken took me aside after and said, listen, I don't think we need to come in for coverage, tight coverage. I was like, okay. But actually, I trust this man more than any director I've ever trusted before. So, I had to put my own personal sort of ambition of a nice, tight close shot for that very important scene aside, and which was difficult. But I think it's far more impactful the way it plays. And at the end of the day, we are discussing the two boys, and in a very sincere and emotional way. So to have them included in the shot for the entirety while we discuss that, I think is really beautiful thing. So yeah, I think it was a wonderful scene to shoot, because it meant, you know, that was the most impactful scene that I read, and she's just the easiest person in the world to work with. So.
Your take, Katrina?
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's such a gorgeous moment between these two characters. You know, I think so often, I will say, first of all, I think the men in this film are some of the most beautiful and big-hearted characters, and they really, you know, you feel the empathy and the love from them, but very often it's the women who are left bearing the brunt of things in these kind of situations, and it's not often acknowledged. And sometimes I think people talk about stay-at-home mothers in this very dismissive way and sort of reduce them to sort of like, well, they're just another wife. And I think that this was a beautiful moment that really acknowledged the weight and the enormity of what Ma was doing and what a lot of women do. And I thought that was a really beautiful moment.
The one thing I'd say also about these two as well, is before that, the same morning, in fact, what had caused Jude to fall asleep was that we'd done the scene ahead of that where he's on the sofa and he, you know, says he doesn't want to leave Belfast. And because of what I'd written, I thought was quite a hard thing for Jude to come in and sort of do straight away. We were into a sort of pitch of emotion. So I said to Jamie and Katrina, would you mind, can we improvise the scene before that, you know, where you've begun. I had written something where he comes in with, I don't want to leave Belfast, and the conversation already happened. I said, would you mind improvising the scene that isn't written? And they were absolutely brilliant at doing that. And part of what informed the scene you've just been talking about was that, and it's scary, I think, but it was wonderful to see. They were helping Jude out because that meant he could have a run up to this explosion, but also this sort of tentative, how on earth do you tell the child that you're going to be taking him away from everything? And I was really grateful. It's one of the enormous contributions that every bit of all these actors in this cast made, and enhanced and improved and added to the script. And that beautiful beat supports the scene that they did. One of the reasons I chose one angle was because the energy in the room and what they'd given to that was so beautiful. And it was all from them.
Excellent. Okay, let's go. Yellow shirt.
Yes.
Wait, hang on. Wait for the mic.
Hi, I'm Terry Hart from Toronto, Super Channel and CBC. You might have not got your close-up for that scene, Jamie, but Mr. Branagh, you definitely made some bold choices around really extreme close-ups throughout the movie. And I'm wondering if that was stylistically your choice when you were writing and you wanted that intimacy with those extreme close-ups, or was it on set with your actors and their faces that allowed you to go in and follow up? What do you think that added for the audience, for the viewer, to be intimate with these characters that an extreme close-up allows?
Thank you for that question. I think a combination of things apply. The black and white was partly chosen for a forensic quality, something that Haris Sambalukos, our cinematographer, put this way. He said, look, color, of course, allows you brilliantly to describe people, but black and white allows you to feel people. You take away some things that you might otherwise look at, and you look more closely at them. I've always thought that it's possible to make epic films in intimate situations. And in cinema, the reason to invest in this, in the big screen experience, is that an epic dimension of black and white photography on a massive screen is the human face. So what might otherwise be the sweeping landscape of a desert or a mountain range or whatever, in black and white, when the scene has earned the right to look in this way, a specific example being Judi Dench at the end, where she sort of you know, from some unknown depths that only somebody like Judy can have, has this kind of Mount Rushmore stillness. I mean, it's unrelenting. The camera is in there going, tell us what you feel, tell us what you feel, and show us your heart. And she sort of opens it up. And a funny thing happened that day. She also was ready to, she knew it was this big. I mean, the camera was physically right close to her, and she knew it was a big moment in the film. But we had something scripted, and just as I was describing with my distinguished colleagues here, she was ready to improvise. So she was there for 2 or 3 minutes and said, what about this? Try this line, do this, whatever. And she's still rock-like. She's like a metronome doing it. So she's hearing all the instruction, no doubt, much of it annoying. But you know, filters out idiot director, idiot director, idiot director. Useful, I'll try that one. Useful, I'll try that one. And then she finally gets these 4 lines and she says it. And I said, cut. I said, that's it. Hold on, Judy. I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go and check the thing. I put the headphones on. Listen. Okay, play that last one again. I went, no. There's something on the fucking soundtrack. What is it? What is that bloody noise? And the sound recorder said, sir, that is your intake of breath when she did it. Oh. And it was me going, because she was so bloody good. And I thought that one huge close-up of Judi Dench was an epic shot in a movie.
Absolutely. Back to this side, right here. You, yes. Again, state your name and your outlet, please. Thank you.
Good morning, Lonita Cook, KCTV5. My question is about drawing out the humor in the narrative. And so the thing that I really loved about the movie is that I didn't think it was about visiting 1969, but remembering 1969. And I was wondering if you remembered it with so much humor, or did you need to construct that afterwards?
Well, that is such an interesting question. I think you're right that it's about memory. You know, the psychologists say the facts of our life are less important than how we remember them. So I was remembering this with a decision to look through the eyes of a 9-year-old. I was remembering him from 50 years ago, and I was trying to sort of come to terms with a number of things, I suppose. But humor, interestingly, and the boys can possibly talk about, Kieran and Jamie, I'd be interested to know if you could put your finger on what you describe the Belfast sense of humor is. But I did want to get that in there as what for me was always a coping mechanism, a sort of an undercutting, sometimes quite a. How would you describe the Irish sense of humour, if that's not a horribly difficult question?
It goes against the grain, in a way. I mean, the idea of you do it a lot, don't you? You two. They're always slagging each other off, and it's a sort of form of affection, verbal abuse. It's just the way it is. The idea that Irish people were such a mixture, and indeed we're a conundrum to ourselves sometimes. You know, we don't really know where we're coming from, but we work on a bit of brain and a lot of heart, and sometimes it leads us down very scary places, and other times it leads to great adventures. My childhood, I was 16 when 69, the year 69 arrived, and I have memories of the thrill of this explosion. And it was only a day later when I started to see the menace of it, really, at 16. And then how it was going to keep perpetuating itself in a tribal way, one side to the other. That it then became very scary, but at the time, you're young, you take risks, you think you're immortal, you know, and you do stupid things. But my childhood at that time was the sound of the city at night and the explosions in the distance, and then echoed off the hills of Belfast. You'd hear, or gunfire at night, and it was an instinct that Ken has put so much Western stuff in the film itself, because there was a lot of cowboys in Belfast at that time, it has to be said, and they weren't all good, you know. But my memories are they're a mixture. But then you're at school, and the next thing, people were using the troubles to get off school. They'd bring up the school and say there's a bomb in the school, and everybody had a day off. You know, well, they're mixing the truth with how they want to play the game, and thank God we've come a long way since then. Anyway.
Thank you. Okay, who over here has a question for Jude? I want to hear someone. Okay, yes, you in the front row. Gray suit, white mask. Name and outlet, please.
Hi, Mose Persico, CTV Montreal. First of all, congratulations to all of you. This was a fantastic movie which resonated completely with me. In 1965, my mom and dad, along with my two sisters and I, made the decision to leave the beautiful confines of the Amalfi Coast in Sorrento to move to Montreal, Canada. For the cold of Canada, I still don't understand. But it was a personal sacrifice that my dad made because he wanted my mom to join her brothers and sisters, my uncles and aunts, in Montreal. You all touched upon making sacrifices, and that's what this movie's about. But this movie's also about the importance of grandparents. And Jude, I want to ask you, Benny loves his grandparents so much in this movie. I didn't have a chance to grow up with my grandparents because they remained in Italy while the family moved to Montreal. What's your connection with your grandparents now, and how does this movie resonate with you in that regard?
Well, my relationship with my grandparents is very like Buddy with his grandparents in the film. And I feel like grandparents are just some people that you can go to talk to if there's any trouble at home that you don't really want to share with anyone else. And yeah, I think Buddy in the film really relies on his pop and his granny if he ever needs anything.
Jude, what was it like for you to film the scenes with the riots, you know, with all the commotion and chaos?
Well, it was crazy filming them because just a bunch of things were going on at one time, but it was so exciting. And it was probably one of my most favorite scenes. And I just loved the thrill of everything that was going on. And I was pretty scared as well on the day, just because everything looked so real and like it was actually happening. And yeah.
Oh, great job. Okay, back to this side. Yes, you on the side. Yeah, you. Mm-hmm. I mean,
Hello, Preston Barter with the Denton Record Chronicle and Fresh Fiction. My question is for Mr. Branagh. You mentioned that this film is deeply personal for you, and I'm curious how much of home is in here for you. Is there anything that maybe as an audience we don't know, we can't detect, but you worked with the production design to put items from your childhood in there that were very important for you to have in there to make it feel more special?
Probably the most realistic depiction was my granny's backyard. The sort of informal gentleman's smoking room, as it were, where my pop used to sit on that loo. It's just a very, very unhygienic, but it's what happened. And he seemed to have, in that backyard, he just had items from all over, everywhere. It's just, he had bits of wire, baskets, mangles, bits of piano, bits of saddlery. Like, there were guys who'd come to the back door all the time and they'd bring stuff, and it would happen at odd times of the day and night, and it was like a real depot there. And when I went in and saw that, I must say, it did put a lump in my throat. This thing about, alongside that garden that was being promised in the house, this thing about inside loos was really very attractive. It was two inside. We couldn't imagine why you'd have two toilets, but it seemed thrilling, and they were definitely both inside the house, because I'd had two. Also, not to get too scatological about this, but they didn't have toilet paper. They used old newspaper. This was not a comfortable way to achieve your ablutions. And so when I saw the newspaper hanging up on the wall, that gave me a bit of a fright, to be perfectly honest. But that bit of the set was very well realized. Yeah.
back to this side. Yes, you in the back, right in the back. Yes, you.
Hi, Jeff Howard, KCLV Las Vegas. Kenneth, this is for you. It's great to know you're a Trekkie. That's just awesome. So I was really excited to see Star Trek in this movie. Also, I'm a classic film fan, so Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, High Noon, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Was there any movies that didn't make the final cut that influenced you in this movie?
Great question.
A couple of movies that didn't make the kind of were The Great Escape. We were that played a lot in our country on television as well. And Steve McQueen gets a reference, however, you may note, but him being very athletic and determined on a motorbike, trying to get out of Germany, was in there for a while. And The Sound of Music was in there for a while. So the late great Christopher Plummer and Didi and Julie Andrews, and both those films had a sort of epic dimension. There were other films that we went to where we thought, wow, the Austrian mountainside and the sort of epic scale of the outdoors in both those films was pretty extraordinary. They're big ensemble pieces. They were long. They were saturated Technicolor pieces. So they were in the movie for quite a long time. But in the end, Raquel Welch won out.
Bravo to that. This next question is from our virtual audience. So this is from Lynn Venhouse and for Ken. So audition process for Buddy must have been extensive. Where did you find Jude?
You may know that the North of Ireland has been, in the last 10, 15 years, a great centre for film. Game of Thrones was filmed in Belfast and all parts around, and many other great shows. So the casting infrastructure is incredibly complicated and impressive. We were able instantly, because we got this together very quickly, to reach out through social media and through drama clubs and schools, all of that very, very instant, to find 300 people ready to do a self-tape. And what was the first, was it your mum who told you about it, Jude, or what was the first time you heard this? Was there a title, or what did you hear?
Well, the first audition that I ever did was a self-tape, and I go to speech and drama lessons, and I do poems and like extracts from books, and my teacher sent through this self-tape, and I filmed it, and I got called back like 5 or 6 times.
And what was it? Was it a bit from the movie, or was it a bit from another play, or a bit of, what was it that you did to begin with?
I think, I think the first self-tape that I did was from another movie because my mum recognized it.
Yeah.
But then after that, a few of the callbacks were the I Don't Want to Leave Belfast scene on Zoom.
And did you, at any point, did you think, what did you think, I really want this, or I don't know, or you don't know how it went, or how did you feel as you went stage by stage?
Well, as soon as I read what it was going to be about, like it was about Belfast back in 1969 and the Troubles, I watched a bunch of films and like YouTube videos to understand it. And after watching that, I was like, this is a really important part of history in Ireland where I live, so I gotta do this. So I did hard work and got it.
What?
Get in line.
What was the scariest part of the process for you, though? Was it right down the end when we all got together, or what was? Did you get sort of anxious or whatever, or were you always kind of feeling, well, easy come, easy go?
Well, once I found out I got the part, I was a bit nervous because I've never done anything like this before. So I was a bit like, oh, how's this gonna go? But then the first day that I ever met everyone, I was just immediately calmed down by how easygoing they all were and how down to earth everyone is, and that really helped.
Good. That's how it happened.
That's how it happened. Thank you for that. All right. Roger Friedman, please.
Hi.
Wait, hang on. Microphone.
Roger Friedman, Showbiz 411. Karen, I wanted to ask you about working with Judi Dench. You were a couple, and you're about 20 years younger than she is. So how did that, well, 18, let's say. But it's unusual to see that kind of casting. So, and your wife is the greatest actress in the world here. So how was that?
Yeah, it would have been churlish to turn down the part, I guess. The day that Ken called us all together, we were sat at a table, and Jamie and Katrina and myself were there, and Judy walked in wearing a tiger mask. And so we knew she meant business, you know. She came in with this tiger mask and the light in her eyes. It was extraordinary. You know, to me, it was another gift from Ken, really, to get to work that closely with someone who is genuinely thinks on her feet like that, is able to turn on a dime, is able to, her instinct, her truth, and her wit and her humor. And the thing as well, is, I think I've said it before, she's a bit of a rebel. So you've got, in entirety, you've got an extraordinary force of nature, and one of the warmest women I've met. It was, for me, it was a great experience. Between herself and this fella here, I was clinging on to both of them, really. Yeah.
Have you ever played 20 years older in your career?
Yeah, I actually, when I was at theatre school in last century, I think I was 19, and there was a Tennessee Williams play in which I had to say the line, "I'm 96 years young." So yeah, I played about 80 years older than I was. And since then, I thought it's not a very good idea. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, back to this side. Let's go, Jim. Hang on.
Thank you so much. Jim Ferguson, I'm with ABC in Tucson, Arizona, originally from Chicago. And a little bit like my friend Mose here from Montreal, I experienced the same thing. I'm a first-generation Irishman. My mother was from the South, and my father was from the North. So you can understand why I had to learn, with the name Ferguson, the song Carrick-Ferguson, which is featured in the film. And Jamie, I don't know if you know that song. I do. It's a beautiful song. And Ken, why that particular song? It really hit home with me.
Yeah, it's a version by Van Morrison, as you know, who did the vast amount of the music in it. And it's also the recording where he's accompanied by the Chieftains. So that's a North and South recording, you might say. That voice, there's something about those Irish songs. Danny Boy obviously features and has been, certainly in my experience, has been murdered regularly in my family. It's always the song you start too high, don't you? And then you get to the middle and you're oh God, I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to make it. Or you'll need an extra Guinness before you get to that top note. But Carrick-Fergus has that same quality of being a sort of folk tune, if you like, but you put it in the hands of Van Morrison, whose voice is a sort of 144-piece orchestra on its own, and then you have the late great Paddy Maloney from the Chieftains, on the harp, and then the bass comes in. Then you're seeing a father say cheerio to his. It's just the combination of the two things. It's so simple. He says, "The sea is wide and I can't swim over," which is, it just is a fucking, is a heartbreaker. It's a heartbreaker. Again, some people, Noel Coward used to dismiss the power of cheap music, I think he called it, but when somebody, like these actors have done, when Van goes to the soul of a song like that, reinvents it, it's accompanied by somebody who also feels it, the DNA goes into the soil, and then you have a simple situation, man leaves home, boy at the window. I mean, how many of us, boys, girls, whatever, have been that figure at the window? It's a gift to the film, is what it is.
We got one more question. Who's going to take us out with a good one? Who's going to take us out? You with the blonde, right there. You. Yes, you. Okay. Let's get the microphone over here. Hang on a second. And make sure, once again, to say who you are and where you are from.
Hi. Jill Pringle, the iPaper, UK. Congratulations, all of you. But Kenneth, I'm from Liverpool. A huge connection with Ireland, and for the longest time I didn't know you were Irish, so I was so curious to know how you kept in touch with your Irish roots, or did you do that thing that we all do when we're a newcomer to a new place? Did you get rid of the accent quickly?
The accent went over I'd say 2 or 3 years where I think what we touched on earlier was this idea that when you're taken away from the big extended family, I think what I wanted to do personally was just disappear. I just wanted to not stick out. I wanted to keep my head down. From a position of knowing exactly who you were, we didn't really know who we were or what we are, or what we were. So my view was just sort of, and I became really quite a solitary adolescent. Very, very solitary. It was really only what you might say through the family of acting that I came back in theatre companies and film companies to sort of be back in that sort of extended family. But I was back in Belfast for my very first job. So, 10 years later, I was back on the Albert Bridge and just a stone's throw from where we had the premiere the other night. And I think, as they say in the film, the Irish were born for leaving, but that leaving comes at a price. And I most certainly lost my way for quite some time. I would say it took me a long way to find my way back home, and with this film, I did.
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, Belfast is in select theaters this Friday, November 12th. And to everyone on this cast, to this wonderful writer and director, thank you for making a film that truly is a rose by any other name.
Shakespeare. Thank you. Thank you.